to my gathering basket. My name is Danelle. Thank you so much for joining me again today. I have a little bit to share with you today. It is a beautiful springy day here in Southwest Missouri. Kind of one of those days that makes you, it just looks so warm. The sun is out. I actually thought I don't have a lot in the knitting realm of things, the fibery content today, so I thought about taking you for a little tour around my little homestead, but the wind was really whipping. It is still definitely March and very windy, so I was afraid the audio wouldn't be all that great. If the wind calms down later this evening, I might go ahead and try to sneak out another little walk and kind of show you around. I hope to do that before too much longer, so you know what's the difference when I show you what things look like later in the year. You'll see the difference. And there's just so much popping to life. I saw on my little tour around, the elderberries are all leafed out. The peach trees are just days away from popping out in full bloom. The rhubarb is poking up. The lilacs are budded. The maples are so red with their buds, and the leaves are just about ready to pop. Things are going to start changing rapidly around here. But it's still March and there's still a little bit of bite to that wind. So it was definitely a nice day to have a nice wrap to put on because as much as it looks like t-shirt weather for me, and I am notoriously cold, so I enjoy having a shawl that I can throw on even in the springy days. The shawl that I'm wearing today is the Color Affection shawl, and I knit this from Sun Valley Fibers. I believe it was 2012, 2013. I got the yarn at Stitches Midwest the one time that I was able to go to a Stitches event, and cast it on pretty quickly after coming home from that event. And it is one of my favorites for throwing on, just because it's a nice long crescent. I'm not going to take it off, but my favorite way, especially in spring where I just need something to take the chill off my shoulders, definitely my favorite way to wear a shawl, is to wrap it around and tie it in the back. So because I don't like to sit on a knot, my favorite way to do this, and you may be doing this already, but my favorite tip is to use a hair elastic. And having long hair, I have these around in piles everywhere, and one day I was trying to wear a shawl, and that knot in the back of my back was so uncomfortable, and I pulled that off and put a hair tie. Let me see if I can real quickly. So on the end, I just take a hair tie instead of knotting it, which sometimes can get short and it unties easily. And of course, since I'm trying to record this, it's not going to work. But normally, there we go. I can just knot those together. Well, good grief. Okay, because I was trying to knot it, or to loop it around twice, and it just wasn't having it. So you can do this, and it makes it a much flatter type of join and doesn't come loose nearly as easily, obviously, since I'm having trouble here. Okay. Just like that. So one of these days, one of my goals is to actually knit a traditional Faroese shawl that has a little bit of that shaping and is designed to tie in the back like that. But until then, I tend to use my crescent shawls like that and just make a nice little vest poncho kind of thing out of it. Works great in the house. I have my hands free to do dishes or to sew or whatever, to knit. I'm not worrying about extra stuff in the front, and it's not all up around my neck either. It just kind of keeps the chill off. So, like I said, you may already know that little tip, but there's my tip for wearing shawls. Okay, so hand spinning. I haven't done a lot, like I said, and I'll talk about that later, but I did manage to finish 2 ounces of my horned Dorset, and this is the fleece, the roving that I'm working with. It's a 2-tone, and so this is what I have spun it up like. And as I said, this is half. So I have a fresh bobbin on my Ashford Elizabeth wheel, and I hope to get this spun up just as quickly as I can, because I am seeing so many people in the Shave 'em to Save 'em group on Facebook and Ravelry. They're all talking about their finished projects, and it's making me really want to get at least one of these done and get on to the next one. So I did get that 2 ounces. Last time I was really close, and I actually finished this last night and got the second bobbin started. And this will just be a traditional 2-ply when I finish. And I'm thinking hat at this point. I'm not really sure. Hat or mittens, an accessory of some sort. I'm really liking the feel of this. So yeah, I'm anxious to get that into yarn and cast on the needles and see what it spins up like. So that honestly is about the extent of the spinning time that I've had. Kind of to bridge between spinning and knitting though, I am working on my Gnome Friend. This is all out of hand spun. The different yarns are slightly different weights. I believe all of these I have spun 2-ply worsted, but I am having so much fun getting this. This is the Mystery Gnome Along by Sarah Shira of Imagined Landscapes, and it's the Gnome de Plume or Gnome Mystery Cow. And we are on, this is 3 of 4 clues. The next clue, I am recording this on Sunday, and the next and final clue should drop tomorrow morning, and that will be the beard. The beard color, I don't believe I brought over with me, but you see the little leaf, which is just the cutest part, I think, of the project so far. I really like that. This would be why she said in her instructions that the beard color, you would not be disappointed if you chose something green. And that is the beard color. So I will have that color beard, and tattling on myself. We had a cast-on party, a friend and I, that were both going to be doing hand-spun gnomes. And about an hour into it, she looked at me and said, "Boy, you're going so much faster than I am." And I was almost halfway done the clue. This was, let's see, the first clue was the hat, starting with the little rolled brim, about to here. And then the second clue came out, was the second half of the hat and the little leaf. And then clue 3 was the body. So we didn't think a whole lot about it. And the next clue came out. I finished that. I actually had to spin more of this fiber to finish. So I was playing yarn chicken. And then when I got to the body, I thought I was going to run out of yarn again, and I didn't have the right stitch count, and things just were not going right. And when I got to, I was telling her that I was about halfway done the body, just not sure if I liked it or not. This is a much heavier yarn than the hat, so wasn't really sure if I liked it. And I said, you know, the funny thing is, nobody has talked about this on the Ravelry, the chat board for this project. But when I got to the end, it said to do a 4-stitch bind off, or 4-stitch I-cord for a few rows and then bind off. I said, but how are you supposed to do that on 3 needles? I only had 3 stitches. And she looked at me kind of funny and said, well, you should be using 4 needles. And I said, well, there's only 3 panels for the hat. There's this really fun mushroom motif, and I had 3 of them, 3 panels, and I was sure that that was what the instructions had said, to cast on and 1 panel on each needle. Well, it did say that, but she also said, and I had jumped over, not read correctly, that you use 4 needles. And I just totally defaulted to 3 needles with stitches on them and 1 needle for using the DPNs, 1 needle for the working needle. So I have the thin version of this gnome. This garden gnome, she is a garden gnome. Her name is Natalie, and she is a garden gnome. She is a published author on mushrooms, hence the little mushroom motif and the little leaf at the top. And so this little gardener has just started gardening for the season, and she has worked off all the winter fat and is toning up, I guess. So I only had, this hat should be a third larger than it is. So I just have a skinny little hat. The directions actually call for you to stuff it all the way to the top so the leaf stands up. I just kind of liked it hanging, so I left it only partially stuffed up here. And then I have her dungarees for the body, and I am really anxious to see what Sarah has us do for the beard for this one. So what I ended up doing is going back, I had followed the directions, and a little fuzz there. I had followed the directions for the body with the stitch count, not realizing that I had a third less stitches here than I should have. So I went ahead, ripped that out as soon as I realized what I had done, and just subtracted those number of stitches from the body. So if you see mine compared to some other people's, mine is definitely a scaled down version. But she sits really well. She does have the little plastic beads. I had a few left over from a project from years ago that I had completely forgotten about, was going through some craft supplies and found a bag of poly pellets and thought, okay, I'll use those. But if you don't like using plastic, Sarah also has a link to a whole bunch of options for different things to weight your gnome down with. So I am very pleased. I kind of like the way the hand spun has turned out, and like I said, I have a little ball of green yarn left like this, and tomorrow I actually have the day off work, so I will be finishing that beard. And next time I will have a finished gnome to show you. That's pretty much it on spinning. And then in knitting, boy, I just don't have a ton finished, so I'm going to catch you up on some other projects. I had started doing some charity knitting last time that I told you about, and thank you for everybody that left me comments and ideas about charity knitting that you have done. There were some pretty cute ideas, some things I had forgotten about or not thought of at all. Anything from the twiddle knits for Alzheimer's patients, dementia patients, doing things for pet shelters, and I actually checked with our local pet shelter, and they do not accept mats, things like that, blankets, quilts, but our quilt shop that I work at does save, anytime we shave off, like straighten out some fabric, we save those little trimmings into a bag. And one day I said, what are these? Why are we doing this? What is it for? And she said that one of the quilting groups in the area does quilts or like pet pillows to donate to a couple different shelters in the area, or rescues. I think they work specifically with a dog rescue. And they used all those little trimmings of fabric for filler in their pillows. So I thought that was a creative way of getting some free filling for those. And I haven't checked. There's another privately run shelter not too far from us, and I'm kind of wondering if they wouldn't take mats and blankets, that kind of thing, because those are fun to make. I've done a couple in the past. It's been years ago, as part of a knit along, and so that would be another fun use of some wool, and maybe even felt them down. The reason, when I talked to the animal control and officer that's in charge of our shelter here in the county, just the county shelter, I asked her about donating some mats to them, and because I've donated things in the past, and she said that they had tried that at one point, and they actually had a dog that got a paw stuck. It was a fairly loosely knit or crocheted piece, probably, I think she said it was crocheted. There was a crocheter in the area that would make them, and the dog got its paw caught in it, and or a claw. I don't remember. It's been several years ago. But anyway, they felt that it was a safety thing because they don't have somebody at the shelter all the time. So it's very small. It just has a couple pens, and so anyway, for them it was partly safety for the animals, and partly they didn't have a way to launder them. So she said they got wet, and they were afraid it would be a health hazard because they didn't have a way to wash them. But the shelter that I have in mind, I do know that they have washer dryer, that they do have some mats and things like that, and really enjoy community participation. So long story, but those are a couple things to keep in mind. If you, it's always intriguing to me to see what different organizations can use, and what their experiences have been in the past with things that have been donated. And a lot to learn, because like I said before, I definitely want what I do to be a help and not a hindrance. So it's always a good idea to check with an organization before you start to work on something that you plan to donate. I never ever would have thought of laundering these pet blankets and that being an issue, but definitely something to consider. So I may be trying to do some of that. I've got some yarn that I could easily do, like some little scrap blankets, and possibly even some wool. I have a bunch of hand spun that I think would felt, and if I could crochet those up real quick and run them through the washer and dryer and felt those down, then that's not going to be so much of a problem of like getting a claw stuck in them and things like that. Maybe. It's a thought. So I'm going to try a few things like that. I also got 2 more octopi done. I'm not sure. I'm kind of thinking this one I'm going to leave without a face. These are showing up, I don't know, just really creepy looking in the camera. This one I was using up literally tiny little gumballs. I had just, in fact, one of these, I think it was this one, I actually had to piece. But this just took all those little itty bitty, and I made all 8 legs a different color. So not an intentional rainbow necessarily, although it came close, but I just thought those colors were fun, and I'm thinking I'm just going to leave him without a face, and I think he'll be just as cute. So I got 2 of those done, and then I finished the pair of little kids socks that I was working on last time, and started another one, and for some stupid reason I thought it would be fun to do a fully cabled sock. It amazes me the time difference between making a vanilla sock and just throwing in some cables. So this is just a 4x2 rib, and I decided on the 4 stockinette stitches to go ahead and run just a real simple 2/2 cable on that. So, and then put in a contrast. I'm using up scraps. These are Peyton's Croy, and they're just such hard wearing socks that I feel good giving those away. I know that they're not going to be a problem in the washer, in the dryer, and they will hold up forever. So on these guys, so for every 50-gram ball of yarn, I got a sock for myself, a kid size sock. This is just a 48 stitch sock, and made about, I think it's about 5 inches from tip to tip here. So just kind of an average. I took the scale, the chart of average kid size socks, and literally just kind of went down the middle on size, and eventually I know some child will be able to fit into those. So I'm really just kind of making these up as I go, and I thought doing a cable would be kind of fun. So I have that one done, and I started to say I have a sock for me, a kid-size sock, and a mug cozy out of each 50-gram ball. So that's been kind of fun. And then I have the start of the second one. I don't know that I will do many more with that many cables, maybe a couple cables, but not all the way around. but I do like the way it turned out. So there it is. And again, the top, these were done toe up, and basically so that I could just use up the smallest skein of yarn that I had and just basically end when the yarn ended. So that's how much rationale thought there was to the design of that sock. So that's going to be the next one. And then I needed something that was brainless, because me and cabling, I like cabled projects until I sit down to do them. And then I'm not the biggest fan of cabling. So I just needed something simple. So time to whip out another dishcloth. And I'm thinking that I may have a place that I can donate the washcloths to. So again, just using up some, this is just a peaches and cream skein of just a natural that I was cleaning out, and boy, that blows out. It's also faded, but peaches and cream that I had found when I was cleaning out some yarn buckets. So working on that, and I think that's all that I have actually worked on. I actually got sick about partway through the week when I talked to you last time. Last weekend, I spent several days in the hospital sick, and I'm just now kind of getting to the point where knitting and crocheting looks fun again. I was in the hospital, and I of course had some purse knitting. It was actually I had an octopus with me that I was working on, and this right before I was discharged, I was laying there trying to crochet, and I had to go very slowly because if I crocheted at my normal speed, I started getting dizzy. So just caught a virus that's been going around, and for some reason it hit me extra hard, and it was so I'm much better. I think I'm recovered. I just need to get some strength back. Don't have a whole lot of energy at the moment. So my knitting time I've spent more time reading than I have knitting. But I'm getting there. But that would be the reason I don't have a lot to show you this time. My parents were gone, and they went down to see my brother in Texas. And there is a yarn shop that's not that local to him, but it's closer than any yarn shop I have to me. And I have followed them on Instagram for a while, and just really thought, oh, this just looks like the kind of shop I would want to go to. I wish this was my local yarn shop. And they would post on Instagram different brands that they were getting in, new inventory coming, and one of them is Tuco wool. So my parents were down there, and I said, someday I'm going to get down to my brother's house, and I'm going to take a day trip, and I'm going to run up to McKinney, Texas, to the McKinney Yarnery. And I believe they have a stand at the DFW Fiber Festival. So if you are going to DFW this year, which I wish I were, but I'm not going to get to go, but I would highly recommend stopping by their booth, because not only do they have a cute shop from the pictures I've seen, but my parents walked in, and neither one of them are yarn people, but they went up for a drive and went to McKinney Knittery and told the owner wasn't there that day, but told the ladies that were there that what I liked to do, and that I really wanted to come down and visit them someday. And there was a particular kind of wool that I wanted, that I'd never felt that they carried. So I get this text from my dad saying, what was the name of that yarn you wanted? So I texted, and the two that I was interested in were Phenol Garn and the Tuco wool. And about 2 minutes later, I get this text from an unknown number with pictures of yarn. So I real quick called my dad and said, I take it you're at the yarn shop? And he said, yes, we are. And they are helping me figure out what yarn to get for you. So I couldn't take pictures, couldn't get them to send. And one of the ladies here at the shop said she would be glad to pick out some colors and send them to me if he would give them my number. So I get this whole series of texts of the whole display of Tuco wool, the different types that they had. They had the fingering and the sock, and asking what projects I had in mind, what colors I wanted, So it was so cute. I was yarn shopping by phone with my parents and getting texts from one of the shop sales ladies. So what I ended up, and it was totally out of the blue, and Dad said, well, you tell me which one you want. And I said, can I have two? I said, tell the ladies there that I want to do some Selbu mittens, colorwork mittens. And they will know exactly what I'm referring to and help you pick out two colors. I said, I don't care which colors they are. I just like two contrasting colors to do some mittens. So next thing I know, I get another series of pictures of different combinations. So this is the one that I picked out. So this is the Tuco fingering. It's 100% wool, fingering weight, finish wool. And I am hoping to make a pair of these songbird mittens. And I'm sorry, let's see. Oh, that's going to come across okay. So these are the songbird mittens, and I'll mispronounce her name, but Erica, and I'll put the link to the pattern below. I have wanted to make these for about 3 years. This was going to be my first pair of fingering weight mittens, colorwork mittens, and I ended up using a little bit too heavy yarn the first time, and I did what I like to do is make the thumb there as my swatch. And so I made that thumb, and I had a fingering, but it was almost a sport weight, and it was beautiful, but it was definitely going to be too big for me, and I couldn't go down much in the way of needle size. So I'm hoping the Tuco wool is a much thinner fingering weight than what I was using, and I know it's a very popular one for colorwork mittens, so I am probably going to be balling these up and starting them. I am supposed to go down to my niece's graduation the end of May, and my parents have promised that if I go down with them, they will take me up to McKinney and I can go see the yarnery myself. So I think it would be so much fun to have those mittens knit up, and I can take them down there and say thank you for their amazing customer service. So, like I said, if you are at the DFW Fiber Fest, which is just getting ready to start here, it's what, about 2 weeks away or so. So if you are down there and see the McKinney Knittery's booth down there, say hi. Tell them you saw me here. And yeah, I was so impressed with their customer service. They do not have, as far as I know, they do not have an online store, but they are fun to follow on Instagram. And she has great pictures of yarn. She'll also post pictures of her chickens, so you know that shop is right down my alley. So there's my Tuco wool, and I am so excited to get these cast on. I do not have my World's End socks finished. I was so disappointed in myself that I was not able to get those done by March 22nd. I was hoping to have at least one done, but I just didn't have the brain space to be able to do color work right then. So those are another project. I'd really like to get those finished up before I get these cast on, but I'm hoping that will be before long. So that's upcoming knitting. I also got a hat finished. That's already been given away. And really, I think that's about what I've done fiber-wise. I'm hoping the next couple weeks will be much more productive. But I guess we all have down times at some point, right? So, homestead-wise, like I already said, things are just busting as far as blooms and buds. I have, and I'll put a few pictures at the end, some still shots of things that are starting to bloom. I had crocus blooming and daffodil blooming, and like I said, so many other things are just so close to being ready. It's going to start really changing rapidly here before long. We also have a lot of seedlings coming up. My loofah sponges, I've got 3 of those that have popped up so far. They're kind of on the slow side. We were getting kind of worried. I have my cotton plants the cotton seed planted from the cotton seed that I saved last fall. So we'll see what second generation of that seed works out to be. I have, like I said, bulbs coming up everywhere. We planted our English peas already. I was not feeling well, and my mom said she was going to go get some pea seed from the greenhouse, and I said, Mom, I can't help you get tilling done. I just can't. We have row covers over our garden for the winter, and we'll use those again in between the rows of plants this spring. So our plan had been to roll all those back, till the ground, and put them back down, and we'd have weed barrier for the summer. However, there was no way I was going to be able to do that, and we have had a lot of rain, so it was a little bit on the muddy side, and then we had freeze, so it was too hard to do it. And so Mom came in, I think it was last Monday, and said, well, I got the peas in. I said, how in the world did you do that? Well, she has a little, we call it a Maddox. It's kind of a digging tool, and it has a blade on one side and a little bit of like a fork on the other side. So she said, well, I took the Maddox out and I just trilled up just kind of like hoed up the ground just enough to be able to get the peas in. So we have peas in, and they should start sprouting here before too long. I didn't look, but they should in the next week or so start to poke their little heads up. The garlic is growing. It's just getting really exciting. And then probably one of my favorite parts of spring, although I have not done this in probably a dozen years, I finally set the incubator to hatch chicken eggs this morning. I've been working on, like I said, I haven't done this in somewhere 10 to 12 years, so I had to get my incubator out, get it all sterilized and tested to make sure that the thermostat would hold a temperature, and get the humidity. I had to get a new thermometer, and then the thermometers didn't agree, so it took me about 2 days to get the heat where I wanted it to be and the humidity where I wanted it to be. And then this morning, so we've been collecting eggs for the last 4 or 5 days to get enough. We've got 35 eggs in there. I do not expect all of those to hatch. I'm hoping that we get 40–50% of them. We actually did not have our chickens set up for breeding right now. This was kind of a knee-jerk decision to try hatching, but we have one rooster and 10 hens that are breeding age. So that's way too high a ratio to really expect all the eggs to be fertilized. But we're kind of thinking that before too much longer, we're probably going to have to get rid of the rooster because he's getting very vocal, and we're not really supposed to have a rooster in town. But we've already checked with animal control, and we talked to all the neighbors, and everybody said, no, we really kind of like hearing him. But we're not sure that as the daylight continues, the days lengthen, and mornings get earlier and earlier, we're not really sure those neighbors are going to be quite so happy when he's crowing at 4 o'clock in the morning. So we're kind of thinking we're probably going to have to get rid of the rooster, and he is if you look at my hens, you can tell that he is breeding with all of them. They tend to get bare patches on their back from breeding. So they were all looking kind of scruffy. So we just took a gamble and went ahead and collected 5 days worth of eggs, and we'll see what we get. So if it doesn't work, we haven't lost a lot. If it does, we've got a whole new clutch of chickens. So, and I know it makes some people really upset, and I hope it doesn't to any of my viewers, but we are kind of a working homestead, and part of that is raising our own meat. So these will be our meat birds for this year. So we'll hatch these and see how many we get. We may do another batch here in a couple months. It takes 21 days for chick eggs to hatch. So I have my calendar marked, and that will actually should be Palm Sunday. And so I will be home that day and the next day those are days I don't have to go into work. So I always in the past, anytime, and chicken eggs are remarkably on time. You set the day, you know what day they're going to hatch. There might be a straggler or two by a few hours, but they're pretty much all going to hatch at the same time. So I would always schedule that day off. so I could be home and watch them hatching. It is so much fun. So I'm really glad the incubator is working. I was afraid I was going to have to get a new one, and then we'll just see what kind of hatch rate we get. But for right now, it's really exciting to be able to watch those. I have an automatic, I don't have a fancy incubator. It's just one of those polystyrene, styrofoam incubators. And I was able to find for $5 an automatic egg turner that fits inside of mine. He said it was a garage sale, and they had never used it. So I was able to get that, and now I have a turner, so I don't have to go in twice a day and turn all the eggs. This just has a really gradual, keeps those eggs turning, which is very important. That's a broody mama hen would turn them several times a day. You can see them. I've only had 2 broody hens in my life. Most of the breeds that I've had are not reputed to go broody very easily and raise their own clutches. So, but the ones that I've had have been really cute. You watch them and they'll just very busily take their beak and their feet and flip all the eggs several times a day, and it's fun to watch. I wish I could have more poultry than I do, because I really enjoy my birds. So I will keep you posted here in a couple episodes. I should have, fingers crossed, I should have some chicks to show you. So that's about the size of what's going on in my little corner of the world. I'm sorry I don't have a whole lot more to show you or a lot of energy, but it is coming back, and I am finally able to get some things done. So I was glad to be able to pop in and at least say hi. Thank you for joining me. Thank you so much for coming each time I podcast, and for the comments that you send. It's so much fun to be part of this community. So thank you for your time, and until I see you again, may your gathering basket overflow with blessings. See you later.